And before I get started, I should probably unmute myself so people can actually hear what I'm saying. So today I thought that I would do something a little bit different because I haven't filmed my wrap up yet. And lately I haven't been having as much time to schedule filming time because I've been busy at work and stuff. So I thought that I'd try something a little bit more interactive and do a live wrap up, and then actually sort of depending on how this goes, I would like restructure my content where I would basically do wrap ups live show style and then focus on delivering actual like content that is more on the like evergreen side, like book reviews, manga reviews, like book recommendation style videos, and also like video essays. So I would like focus the like scheduled produced content on that side, and then do the wrap-ups live show style. So this is an experiment and we shall see how it goes. So without further ado, I'm gonna start talking about some books, and I'm also gonna share my screen and show you the books that I have been, or the webtoons rather, that I have been reading. Hi Milo. Hi Joe. I'm glad you could join me. It's always nice to have people actually engaging when you're doing live. It's awkward to speak to myself, as it were. So in February, it was an interesting month because I read a lot of comics. I read a lot of specifically webcomics, webtoons, focusing on more of the South Korean side of webtoons. And I also read FIYAH Magazine, which was probably the only like Western fiction that I read. And then the other book that I read was Under the Oak Tree, which is a web novel. So that was also a different kind of experience. So I'm just gonna start with the webtoons that I read in the month of February. And I should probably share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. So let's do that. Okay, so this is the very first webtoon that I read. These are rather ranked by how much or how little I enjoyed them. So starting from the one that I enjoyed the least is Restoring Art and Love, which is basically this idea of this like this heiress to a prestigious like a business conglomerate. She gets assigned to this project of restoring this art museum, and she's never really been a part of the art scene or anything. And also, she is someone who, how do you say, she's very like insecure, because all her like life she has been sort of belittled by others, and no one has really trusted in her skills. So she comes at this project with a lot to prove. And in this work, she meets this art restorer, and they start to form a relationship. So it's a romance. But the reason that I didn't really like it was because it read like a textbook. I learned a lot about art restoration and art history from this webcomic. Did I think it was entertaining? Not actually really, because seriously, I went in expecting a little bit of like art references and stuff, but I was hoping it was gonna be more of like a romance. And then about like 50% of the whole thing was just regurgitating facts about, art restoration, which was like interesting. I was very interested to learn about all that, but that wasn't what I signed up for when I read this. Also, this was just 13 episodes long, so about 13 chapters, which would mean it's like 2 volumes, let's say. If you think about like manga volumes, this would be like 2 volumes. And it's very short, and it goes through the beginning stages of the romance, to them dating, to the inevitable third act breakup, and then them getting back together in just those 2 volumes. It was very rushed. And a reminder, 50% was about the art restoration part. So I actually did not like this very much. So I gave this about 2 stars. Also the art style. Only like the art style was not aesthetically pleasing to me. Like the character art, like here, that was fine. But the backgrounds were all 3D assets. It was basically an asset flip of a webcomic. They were unedited 3D assets just plunked as the background for these characters, and they were very crude, kind of looked like they were done in paint, which also didn't lend itself to be aesthetically pleasing when you consider that this is supposed to be all about art. So it felt a little bit cheap in terms of how it looked. And in terms of what the subject matter was, that those 2 things didn't quite mash up. So let's move on to the next one. This one right here, Restoring Art and Love, was a huge disappointment. So let's move on to the next webtoon that I read, and I'm still currently reading because I read the first season in February, and now I'm on to the second season, so basically the second volume. And it is, let's see. Let's see. It is the Devil Lady. I'm just gonna quickly reshare, because apparently I have to do this one at a time. So next time, I'm definitely going to just pick up slides. So the Devil Lady, or Lady Devil, I should say, is it is extremely aesthetically pleasing. Like if Restoring Art and Love is the type of comic where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep reading this because it's short, so I know I'll be over and done with quickly. Lady Devil is a story that is so beautifully and tantalizingly well drawn that I just wanted to keep reading it, just because it was so luscious to look at, like the colors, the painterliness. Even if sometimes the artist has used like ready-made assets as the background, they always draw over them in order to like incorporate them to their own art style. So, but I'm like, Lady Devil is kind of a, like, I don't want to call it a guilty pleasure, because I generally don't believe in guilty pleasures. I think you like what you like, and you shouldn't feel guilty about liking them. However, Lady Devil is a very problematic piece of fiction, and it deals with a lot of taboo topics. So if you ever would consider reading it, like, there's plenty of content warnings, okay? First of all, as I was reading reviews on Goodreads about the first season, I noticed that a lot of people were upset at this because they thought that the romance was perverse. And here's the thing. This series contains incest. And that's the big, like, negative impact that people who were reviewing it were having, that this is basically glorifying incest and sexual assault. However, I think the first misunderstanding comes from the fact that people misinterpret this as a romance, which I think it is not. I think it is, in fact, horror with romantic elements. I would classify it as romantic horror than anything else. It takes a lot of cues from like exploring taboo subjects and all those like gothic horror like tropes. It puts all of those in, and it's very gross and gory. I would say that if you have ever thought about reading Berserk or you have read Berserk, I think Lady Devil is the kind of story that is like a milder version of Berserk. So if you want to like try out a bit of a series with a lot of dark content and gore and very questionable morality, I think Lady Devil is a place to start. And then if you can stomach Lady Devil, then you know that you would be able to stomach something like Berserk by Kentaro Miura. And since I have already been, corrupted by Berserk when I was a wee teenager of about 17 years old when I started reading it, this was basically just another walk in the park for me. But I will say that it does contain a lot of really dark topics. And it is like all about this two siblings locked together in... Exactly, Jenna, exactly. Berserk is my favorite rom-com. I kind of want this on a shirt, t-shirt somewhere. I might have to design it, but yeah, this is basically about these two siblings that have led very different lives. The other is the heir to this grand duchy. That's the most like powerful and rich duchy in the entire realm. And the other sibling has basically been locked away in a tower because their mother became kind of obsessed with her chastity and safety. So she locked her in a tower, and the only contact to the outside she had would be to look at her brother training and doing like all these activities that she wasn't able to take part in. And that caused her to kind of form this really weird fixation on him. And it kind of like explores this idea of like what makes up your own identity, and if you like fix part of your own identity to someone else, like basically project part of yourself to someone else, how warped that relationship can become. And there's a dark magic, there's all these curses, there's this huge like looming curse that the twins' ancestors have made with a devil that looms over them. And also it might not be as incesty as first glances would imply. But I can't go too much deeper than that because that would spoil things. I will say that it was interesting that a lot of the chapters, I read this in Manta app, which is a competitor to Webtoon, and it's basically kind of like a Netflix for webtoons. You pay like €3 or was it €4 per month, and you get unlimited access to their catalog and you can read all the things. So I was reading this there, and it kind of like I felt this like interesting thing where they would actually like give out content warnings before any chapters, like, okay, this chapter contains these things, reader discretion is advised and stuff. And I thought that was kind of neat. Like it gave people the chance to back out before each before each chapter. So I gave this first season 3 stars, mainly because I still don't really know what the heck is going on. Like there's this the lore is interesting, and the story has some really dark twists, and I'm interested to see what is going to happen, and I want to keep reading to find out. However, I have no idea what is going on. So that's why I gave this like 3 stars or something. It's fine, but I'm mostly reading it for the art right now because the plot does not make a lick of sense. So, I mean, we shall see next month if the second season has finished by then. If the second season is doing anything more interesting with the story. If not, I might have to like dip out of reading it. But so far, it's been intriguing enough that I have read it every week when a new chapter has come out. But yeah, definitely look up content warnings and go in with the right expectations. This is not a romantic story. This is a horror story, and a lot of people have mistaken it for a romance, which it is definitely not. This, like, I can't expect any sort of happy ending to come out of this story. And then the next, this next one is actually kind of like, this could go anywhere around with these next two in terms of ranking, because I basically enjoyed them the same. This was a Remarried Empress, and this is a web comic that is based on a web novel of the same name, and it is basically like a fantasy romance court intrigue, and it is about this woman who is an empress of a country, and her husband starts cheating on her, and she later is asked for a divorce. Like her husband asks her for a divorce, and because she doesn't want to go down in obscurity, she immediately asks for the permission to get remarried and promptly remarries the king of the neighboring kingdom, just to sort of well, not to piss him off, but basically to like take the matters into her own hands and gain back the agency, because she bases a lot of like her identity in being the empress and being someone who is a politician and a ruler. So in order not to lose her status, she marries this king, and it's actually really funny, and it's a rom-com, but it has also a lot of like court intrigue and politics woven into it, and it's basically like super slow burn. The first season had like 70, like it had an enormous amount of chapters, and it just ended with the divorce. It starts up with the divorce chapter, so you know that the empress is going to get divorced. That's the whole premise, and then the first season kind of just shows you how they got to that point, and it was actually really cool. It was the sheer like ridiculousness of these like court intrigue stuff and this rivalry between the mistress of the emperor and the empress, and like all these social dynamics and how they played off each other. Like it was very well done. I was really engrossed in it, and I gave this 4 stars, and I am still continuing on. And if I'm ever going to do a webtoon or webcomic recommendation video, this will probably show up on the list, because it's been nice. And also, I love it when there is a female lead that is confident in her abilities and actually gets stuff done and isn't just a decorative wallflower. So yeah. And speaking of decorative wallflowers, the next one that I read, or the next ranked one that I have read, is Under the Oak Tree by Kim Suji. And this one is kind of interesting, because it plays around with a lot of tropes that I see in like fantasy romance. It has the possessive, overbearing, jealous male lead trope. The main romantic interest is very overbearing and possessive of the female lead. But it's kind of the point, because the story starts with them already being married. They have had an arranged marriage, and they have been separated for 3 years when the male lead has been off fighting in a war. And he comes back and takes the main character takes her to his estate, and they have this sort of interesting dynamic, because the main character has lived her whole life secluded in her like father's manner. Her father is this very powerful duke, and her father has projected this facade, like this appearance, this image on the outside, that he is a very doting father, and he's just taking care of his sickly daughter by secluding her and isolating her from others. But in real life, or in reality, he has been abusing her for not meeting up expectations, not being the daughter that he would like. The main character has a severe stutter, which is constantly present. So that is why she has always been sort of put down by her parents. And so there's this interesting dynamic where she is sort of this person that the main male lead wants to protect. And the main male lead has projected his own idea of what she's supposed to be and what he thinks she is onto her. And she, on the other hand, is when she gets taken from her father and put into a place where she can start to realize what kind of person she is and what she wants to do. She starts to slowly rub against those misconceptions that he has about himself, about her. And it's very interesting because it kind of plays with all these like tropes, like the damsel in distress and the wilting wallflower of a female lead, and it kind of tries to do something with them. It tries to subvert them. It tries to show this slow build-up of character development in the female lead. I don't think it's always very successful, but I've been really intrigued that it tries to do that, because this is very much this type of like fantasy romance, very like I would say Sarah J. Maas style. And I don't always think that those types of fantasy romances really go deep enough or like try to subvert those like very, what you would consider very like cheesy and problematic tropes that they might have, and like toxic character traits. But this one at least tries to address them and tries to do that. And I have been following this for quite a while. And this is also based on a web novel that I'm also currently reading, and I'm going to be talking about that in a bit. But I also gave this 4 stars. I've been really enjoying this. So yeah. And then the last webtoon that I read in the month of February, and my very, very favorite one, if you take anything out of this whole shebang, this is the one. Very much recommend this this whole thing. Semantic Error, which is a BL, it's a boys love comic, and it is very, it's so fresh, like, because okay, I'm gonna calm down before I like lose myself in a gushing tirade. But essentially, Semantic Error is about these college students. The other main character is basically a design student who's just about to graduate, and he's like this super confident and extroverted and outgoing and stuff. And he's also canonically bisexual. The other main character is on the autism spectrum, and he's a computer science major. And he's very like blunt about things and takes like can't really understand sarcasm, has face blindness, and their dynamic starts when they have worked together on a project, and the other male character, the outgoing one, didn't actually. Yes, it is semantic error. You heard correctly. Semantic error is correct. And they were supposed to work together on this project, but our outgoing fellow never showed up and was just expecting to course through the course and just, get credit and pass the course. And it was his last course that he was supposed to finish to graduate. And lo and behold, the other main character is like, you're not gonna coast off on my efforts. So he rats all of his group members out to the teacher, and everyone else but him gets a failing grade for the assignment. And this starts up this like severe animosity between them. So it starts out as a kind of enemies to lovers, and then it turns into like a sort of respect, a budding romance when they start working together eventually on a game project, and then they start to develop this romance. And it actually is really nice because it talks about things like consent, which is something that you rarely see in BL. It's actually become quite a recent development that nowadays more modern BL actually talks about stuff like consent more often, which is very nice. But this one does it very effortlessly. It doesn't seem forced, and doesn't seem something that is just there to like, it doesn't seem like it's tacked on. It actually feels organic to the characters, and it's also like the enemies to lovers part is that I sometimes feel like if the characters are in full-on conflict with each other, where they are really like blood enemies with each other, I usually can't really get behind the romance. But with these two, the thing that made them enemies is just, it's tame enough that there's the possibility that they can forgive each other and move on and become friends. So it makes it more plausible that they actually can get past the initial animosity, and it works very well. Also, I really like the art style. The art style is very sort of reminiscent of like the late 80s, early 90s, like drawing style. Think of Banana Fish in terms of like how the characters are drawn, but put to a more modern way. It's more like proportionized, like in a way that more modern manga or manhwa would be. But the like facial expressions and the way the faces are drawn is very like inspired by the like 80s, and also the color palette and the way the artist uses textures is very inspired by like the late 80s or 90s, even though this is set in current time period. Highly recommended. This is like one of the series. It comes out like 3 times a month. I also read this on Manta app, and I just like, this is something that I wait for every single like time that it uploads. I'm always like, notification on, thank you. So yeah, those were the webtoons that I read, and then I also read some fiction things, some books. First of all, I read the FIYAH Magazine of like issue 20, and I read it for the Shorts and Sorcery book club. I made a full like live show wrap up of that as well, and I really enjoyed it. I actually went ahead and nominated one of the stories for this year's Hugo Awards, so I thought it was very nice. The way the stories were chosen, they really like fit the theme of the magazine, which was love, death, and robots, and every single story fit the theme and kind of had similar thematic structure, so I really like that. And the nonfiction piece in that magazine was also very nice. So yeah, FIYAH Magazine, definitely recommend you pick up one of their issues if you haven't already, because it was quality. And the other thing that I read this, might as well take the banner out. I'm not talking about webtoons anymore. Another thing that I read this month was Under the Oak Tree, the volume version, the web novel. And I read a fan translation of it, so it wasn't, strictly speaking, very appropriate to be reading basically a fan's translation of the original Korean. But I did, and it was pleasant. Very smutty. The webtoon is a lot more tame. It takes out a lot of the erotic scenes, whereas the novel kind of borderlines on like being erotica, like fantasy romance erotica, essentially. But the reason why I'm talking about this is that the official English translation just came out, and I bought them in Amazon for Kindle, and then I did some magic in Calibre, and now they're on my Kobo, and I'm reading them, and they're great. So yeah. So if you enjoy, like, if you enjoy the idea or think the idea of that story is something you would want to enjoy, you can actually buy it on Amazon for like, I think the first 2 parts of the first season are up right now. I think it's gonna be like in 4 parts, and it's like $1 per book currently. So yeah, I've been really enjoying those. What can I say? I love the trope of tall and small pairing, where one party of the romantic pair is as a huge dork, both physically imposing and also mentally imposing, and then the other person is short and I like that dynamic. Also, I really like that it is exploring this idea of this romantic lead coming to her own and finding her own skills and finding her own agency. It also does the thing where how in, for example, Twilight, the main character is always like, oh, I have luscious brown hair and brown eyes, but I'm ugly as sin. It does that, but it is justified because the main character has grown up always feeling tested by others. So her view of herself is purely like the way she views herself is deeply ingrained within her own lived-in experience and her trauma regarding her situation, like growing up with a parent that either abused them physically and mentally or completely ignored them. So it's obviously her thoughts about her own physical appearance and are deeply related to how her interactions with other people have been. And so that makes it less annoying to read about when she's like, well, I can't understand why this person finds me attractive, because it comes from a place of trauma and discomfort with being given any type of positive attention. And even this idea that in the first part of the novel, Under the Oak Tree, she's constantly comparing her husband to her father and thinking about adjusting her behavior in order to not trigger a violent episode, because that's what she's come to expect. So I think that it's actually trying to explore those things in a really interesting way. Does it always succeed? No. The main characters can sometimes feel a little flat, like the author is definitely trying so hard, but in the end, this is kind of like you're reading an like an anime, essentially. something in the writing doesn't always click in terms of like characterization. This doesn't have like let's say a Robin Hood level of characterization for the characters, and you shouldn't expect it considering that this was a web novel, which basically means that the author cranks out chapters every few days, and usually they don't have the same kind of editorial relationship as published authors, like traditionally published authors do. So really expecting the same level of like sophistication in like the way the narrative is constructed is a little bit of a like unfair, because that is not how these novels are constructed. They are web novels. They are like for immediate entertainment first and foremost, and artistic merit second, to be honest. But this has given me so much joy. So basically, I have read the webtoon adaptation of this. I have read the fan translation of this web novel, and now I'm reading the official English translation of this thing. In the span of like a month, I have completely become consumed with this series, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Sometimes you just want to read something fluffy and cute and fantastic, and that's okay. Like, not everything I read needs to be a masterpiece of literature, but I will also say that there is merit in someone crafting a story that moves you. And I think Kim Suji with Under the Oak Tree has done that. She has written a story that has moved me and has entertained me, and I keep coming for more, so that's great. So those have been all of the things that I have read in February. It's basically all comics and a few things of prose and nothing else. So I thought that I'd talk a little bit about my plans for the channel before I go. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm thinking depending on how this is going to go, and depending on how this live show is going to turn out, and how I find it later looking back, I might switch to making my reading wrap-ups like live shows every month, because that would make it easier for people to engage with it during like the time that I'm live, and also just, make me more relaxed going over the things that I read. I wouldn't have to plan it out as much. Obviously, for next time, I can already think about a few things that I could improve upon. First of all, I could arrange all of the cover material as slides so that I can flip through them nicely and share, and don't have to like reshare and stop sharing my screen and stuff. And also I could have some notes. This is basically all improv right now, so I'm just speaking what comes to my mind. But if I end up taking my wrap-ups to a direction where there are live shows every month, then I would be able to focus on doing more researched content. Currently, actually, I have a few things that I'm thinking about, which pertain to translation. So it's Introduction to Translation Studies, basically the concept of what goes on into translation, and also how language affects culture and how culture affects language. And I'm thinking of making more like sort of video essay type things, at least try out some in a few topics that I'm interested in. One that I am planning currently, I can't promise that it will come out this month or even the next month. I'm hoping that if I can get the research done and the writing done and all of that thing done, it would come out in early May, hopefully, fingers crossed, but I'm not promising anything yet. But I am thinking of doing a piece on translators and crediting translators specifically, because as I have been reading these web novels and webtoons, I have noticed this very egregious trend where translators are not ever credited. And if they are, it's like not like you have to really look and search for it. So that is a topic that I'm very interested in, and I'm currently doing research and reading up on it and stuff. So I am expecting to do some type of video on that in the future. Also, the next live show for the Shorts and Sorcery Book Club is going to happen in April. And I'm still looking for a co-host for that. So if you are interested in talking about Love After the End, which is an Indigenous speculative fiction anthology, let me know. And I would be happy to entertain the idea of making you a co-host if you are interested in that. And Translate-a-thon is going to happen also later in the year. So I'm working on making an announcement video for that as well. So things are happening on the channel, and I'm hoping that by doing more live shows, it helps me to kind of stay present and stay active on the channel without putting pressure on me to actually keep producing more produced content while I'm struggling to keep my head above water at work. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. And thank you for joining me. And yeah, Joe, translated things are my jam. That is just a well of possible like video ideas. So I'm definitely going to look into making a couple more videos on translated works and translation practices in general, especially as the time to host Translate-a-thon comes around. And yes, I mean, obviously, I'm very happy if you do participate in Translate-a-thon, but don't like limit your reading on my account. Reading translated fiction or translated things in general is much appreciated all throughout the year. Exactly, like it is appalling that like translators usually, if they're lucky to get credited, especially in terms of like comics work and stuff, if they're lucky to get credited, they maybe get put on the last page of the work. In terms of like if you read manga or comics or something. With books, it's usually somewhere like on the title page, except if the author is very prolific and has name recognition, like Ken Liu, then they might get a second billing in the cover. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be like making an extensive video on that practice as well, and all about like crediting translators in general. So yeah, I'm really happy that you have been here with me and like engaging with me. And yeah, this was my February wrap-up live show edition. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that some of these things interested you. Like a show of hands, if you're still here, what was the most interesting thing to you that I like, interesting title to you that I discussed? If you are seeing it live, you can put it in the chat. If you are watching this on the recorded version, then put it in the comments. I would very much like to know what is the one thing that you would take as a recommendation of this video. Like, what was the thing that you would want to read? Exactly, Semantic Error. Like, I am slightly obsessed with it. Like, it has such a different dynamic between the main characters than I am used to reading, and it actually puts the main characters in, like, they are talking about their own interests, and they are talking about how to approach being in a relationship and being in a physical relationship, which is like mind-blowing. A boys love comic that explores the topic of communication in a relationship. What is this sorcery? So yeah, definitely recommend that one. Yay, Jenna, for the support. And with that said, I will leave you to have a fantastic Saturday and the rest of the weekend. If you want to see another live show in the near future, I'm going to be on Rachel from Kalanadi's channel tomorrow on March 20th for our monthly Stitch and Bitch session, which also starts at 9 p.m. Eastern European time. So if you want a few hours of crafting, knitting, crocheting, all that jazz, talking like a bunch of friends talking to each other about pop culture and books and stuff, feel free to join. I'm having all those links in the Twitters and stuff, and Rachel's channel, which is Kalanadi. Yes, Joe, I thank you so much. I'm very honored to be called one of your favorite people. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye bye!